Welcome to the Scrumptious Woman. I have with me a beautiful, scrumptious, delicious, wonderful Georgina, who is a powerhouse. You're another 6 too, aren't you? Manifesting generator. So you and I met, gosh, what is it? Almost 3 years ago? 2 and a bit years ago in a mastermind.
To be honest, time has just gone full.
Completely. And I've been in some of your containers. You've worked with me a little bit. And this is what I love about being in a mastermind together, being in a place where we actually just get to experience everyone's brilliance a little bit. So I'll have a little taste of that. It's like going for a beautiful tapas where you just get to sample everyone a little bit and what are their gifts. And for me, it's just been an absolute delight to be in your containers and to just hear your richness and life, your laughter, the way that you experience life. And there's a lot of joy in that as well. So welcome. That was a long welcome.
I'll take that. Can I just snip that out and just share it with people who want to work with me and say, this is who I am? Because whenever anyone asks, what do you do? I go, so don't know how to describe it, but you'll feel better after. That's pretty much how it works.
Isn't that funny? So we as our 6-2s, and especially as the 2 lines, right? Human design. And it's just, one of the things, one of the systems that you can look at and start like getting a download of your instruction book, because mine seems to be like bigger and bigger the more that I look at stuff. But it's one of our gifts that we just do things so naturally that we're like, it's not a big deal. So people ask, what do you do? And I just had that question as well.
I know. And that's why I'm so glad that when we did record a podcast already about a year and a half ago or something, and I was so ill and you were ill as well. And we were like, we got through it. And afterwards I was like, I didn't feel like that was really, I didn't feel like I was particularly me today. And so we said, let's do it in the future when we're both feeling a little bit more zingy. And so here we are. But yeah, it's been a very interesting journey. I feel like even after that conversation, so much has shifted and changed in both of our worlds that this is just an entirely different vibration that we get to bring. So it's, I want to ask you, like, what's exciting you at the moment? I just want to talk to you. I'm like, tell me everything. Tell me the things.
And this is the beauty. That's where it does go, the podcast, because I've given the podcast a bit of a pause. So you're the first person of 2025 that I'm interviewing, and I'm like, I'm really excited about having the podcast come out again. For a year and 4 months or so, it came out every week, and in the beginning, twice a week. So it just took a lot of dedication. And at one point, I could just feel myself go a little bit stale, maybe is the word, where it just felt like, oh, this is felt efforting. I don't have that same passion as I did before. And now I'm like, yes, bring it on. Bring on some incredible people. Let the world really receive those voice codes that we all carry, those energetic codes and by transmitting them out into the world, people already get that energetic imprint and they can move stuff in their bodies and in their psyche, of course.
Yeah, I was speaking about this just the other day. So for me, for anyone who's into human design, if you're not, don't worry about it. It's just another rabbit hole that you can fall into should you desire to. Like, woohoo, Alice in Wonderland styles. And for me, my sacral connects to my throat. So my throat motor is driven by my sacral. And I very much experience when I'm speaking to people. I was explaining it to someone the other day that it's almost like I feel in people's systems, or I feel, I don't even know how to explain how I experience it, but I experience it, there we go, as almost like ripples of energy and light coding in people. And it's like something in me just senses where things are a bit tangled or knotted. I describe it like fascia. You get a knot in your fascia in your body, and then you go and have those kind of release massages, and you feel the energies go, woo! There was so much held in that one little point of tension physically in the body. And I feel that with the vocal codes that you're speaking about, for me, I definitely know that my voice and the transmission that it carries is a big part of what activates people. And it's a big part of, I almost feel it and experience it as my voice weaves into their system and it just gently massages out the knot. I'm sure anyone listening to this will be familiar with energy work, I'm sure. And we all have had those experiences where you just walk into a room with someone and there's such a resonance in their energetic coding that you almost feel nauseous because you can feel things moving already just by being in their presence. So it's always really fun when I see people just getting on a call with me and they're already burping and yawning and coughing. I'm like, all right, let's go.
That's it. And it's really interesting trying to explain that to people. They're like, oh, but I'm yawning and I'm so tired. I feel like I'm falling asleep. I'm like, perfect. And I have this, like, when I meet people in person, even much more, or like they want to stay near me because they feel so grounded. And then, yeah, that means I go to a party and I've got all of a sudden 10 people around me that will just not let me go. And I'm like,
yeah, no, you are magnetic as fuck, like for sure. And having been in your physical presence once and having lunch in the glorious sunshine that day, it was beautiful when we had lunch and we were like inside but outside. It was gorgeous. And yeah, I can absolutely feel that. And I think you've become because again, knowing each other a period of time and witnessing everything you journeyed in your own experience, which I won't go into because it's not my story to tell, but all the things that even the tiny little fragments of that story that I got to witness and experiencing the richness of you just amplify the more and more you just kept. I don't know. I don't even know I know some of what you were doing. I don't know all of it. I'm sure you were doing many magical things behind the scenes that no one knows about. But it's so palpable in women like you. And I think you're such an inspiration, certainly to me, and I'm sure to so many other people, that just you existing and being in the fullness of who you are. It's just so yummy. It's so delicious. I'm like, oh yeah, get me in that juice.
And I think it's thank you, first of all. Let me actually just receive that.
Yes, receive.
Yeah, this is one of the things I teach people. Don't just walk past it, but actually,
take it, baby, take it.
Because that holds codes as well. So that now by me being able to receive that, so I stretch that capacity. Okay, next time I can receive even a bit more. But it's been interesting because on the last day of the year, the 31st, I spent basically the whole day in bed writing poems. I'm like, I never write poems. I'm like, where did this come from? I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust it. So at one point, my daughters were here and it was 7:30 and they're like, hey, we've cooked dinner. Are we going to do New Year's Eve and have the dinner that we discussed? And I was like, I was still in pajamas. Thing that really what it was about the poems is about the woman in my life. And it was actually my twin daughters that really inspired a whole chapter on that. And also by being in the presence of other women who don't turn down their light. Who the other day I went and dropped off a packet that had been delivered here, and it was big, it was heavy. And this old lady, frail lady, opened the door. And I just said, okay, can I just bring it in because it's heavy? She said, oh, please, she said, please stay for coffee, tea. I don't remember what it was. And I was like, and then something just said yes. And then she started talking about her husband and a squirrel and just, yeah, you could just see the vivaciousness of how she was. And then she got really embarrassed. Oh my God, I can't believe I talked about this because this is one of her things, right? People talk to me a lot. And I was like, no, thank you for letting me see that part of you. And just when I left, she stood up a little bit straighter. There was just like such an elegance and such an energetic change in her. I'm like, if we can gift this, if our presence in the world can gift this to other women and men around as well, because we wouldn't be anywhere without some beautiful men that help support us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bring it on.
We're
certainly not trying to get rid of men, that's for sure.
Oh my God, but there's so much man bashing going on.
Right? People wouldn't be able to cope. I'm like, no, don't take them away.
Yeah, I've just noticed, I think in the coaching world, there's a lot of man bashing going on.
Really?
this and they're that. And I'm like, whoa, I understand that with feminism and we need it to be that vocal. And now let's also appreciate these beautiful men and how they are showing up in the world.
Yeah, I think for me, in any six line, for me, in anything, I'm always, this is a personal thing. I prefer to speak into what I desire to see, what I want to feel, what I want to witness, what I want to experience. And at any point where I would, certainly when I was younger, for sure, absolutely, would I have been judgmental? Would I have maybe used someone else's experience to say, oh, that's not what I want to do. I want to be over here. So that must mean they're wrong. But I think that the more you kind of journey on this spiritual the spiritual path, life is a spiritual path, but the more mindful you are around how you're growing and how you're evolving as a human, how you're expanding and how your consciousness is evolving, you start to notice that there's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong. We can, and I know that's edgy for some people because they're going to say, yeah, but what about this? And what about that? I get it. I get it. You don't have to agree with me. It's fine. I'm not a politician. I'm not some guru who's telling you have to follow me. This is just how I experience life. So that's all I'm sharing. And so where it's cancel her, she had an opinion, but that's
stand, darling.
That's it. It's the witch hunt vibes, isn't it? And that's what that's where that comes from. So I'm so mindful of that and how we don't know the nuances of everyone's story. We can't possibly know what elicits certain behavior or whatever from certain people. We just can't, we don't know everything about everyone. So I just like to focus on me and what is the frequency and the vibration, the mindset. Like, am I being loving? If I'm witnessing war outside of me, I'm looking within and going, where am I at war with myself? And again, I know that's going to piss some people off. And there we go. That's how we roll. But it is when I'm witnessing something, if I'm activated by it in some way, I'm always turning that mirror back in to see where is that vibration being held within me? What is it about this quote unquote toxic masculinity or whatever? But where am I upholding that patriarchal or that toxic masculine programming in myself? Where am I still conforming to those ideas? And how can I defragment those and recode myself so that I'm not feeding that narrative unconsciously? And I think if more people did that, there would be less finger pointing and blaming, and maybe we'd see a little bit more change in the world. But I'm aware that we are where we are. People are who they are, and that we're all good. We're all okay. There's no right, there's no wrong. This is just my preference, right?
Yeah. But it's such beautiful way that people really do mirror back where we're not free yet and where we bump up against this. And we had beautiful example was that with my twin daughters who were here for Christmas and New Year's. So they're here for 12 days. So it was a lot of cooking, a lot of baking, a lot of all of a sudden 23-year-olds who adore cooking and want attention. And one is an artist, a quarter Palestinian, so her whole work is all about Palestine. And she had a run in with my partner Alex. And it's been building up. And then she just said, every time I talk about Palestine, every time I talk about being a Muslim or my faith, he walks away. And that really hurts. So she made up this whole story. He hates me and the this and the that. And I was like, whew, okay. So I'm like, here you are trying with your work. You're trying to just show a little piece of what your emotions are. You're having people become aware of what your perspective on Palestine and Lebanon and the Middle East is. And yet, when someone doesn't agree or challenges your perspective, he then again becomes sad with me. So at one point, she was like, a lot to me. And I'm like, listen, you guys, I just put my intention there. I told him also, hey, you guys just need to work this out. And I put my intentions like, they're going to work it out. I was on a call and Noor, my other twin, and I were making dinner afterwards and they worked it out. He went to her room, worked it out. And afterwards it was like, oh, hadn't been aware of what I'm doing. The other person is like, they just kept pressing each other's buttons and not being aware of it, and then projecting onto each other, you do this. And I'm like, oh, what's happening? And it needed a 20-minute conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm aware that I come from a very privileged place. So I'm not pretending that I'm going to have the same lived experience as someone who's in a different place than I am. I'm very aware of that. But I can only have the perception that I have. I was put here as me with this life experience for a reason. So to try and, what's the word I'm looking for? Speak from any other viewpoint would be really incongruent, actually. So we can only ever speak from where we are. And isn't that okay? Is that not
Beautiful.
allowed anymore? I don't know. It's crazy. I definitely, for a few years, muted. I don't really talk about politics or anything like that in my work ever, because I don't know enough. I don't know enough to have a viewpoint that I feel like if I bring it forward, it's going to add any value to the conversation, honestly.
Yeah.
So I would rather just say, I don't have a viewpoint. I don't have an opinion on that specific situation. This is how I view life.
Yeah.
But I don't have enough information about that to give you something that's really going to add value to this conversation. I was thinking about it the other day, I wish more people would be okay with saying the phrase, I don't have an opinion on that.
Isn't it a brilliant thing? I don't have an opinion.
Everyone thinks they have to have an opinion on everything now. And I've not considered this in any depth. So please don't expect me to have an opinion that's going to move this conversation forward or add any value to this, because I would just be making something up. I don't.
And the beauty of that
on the internet would just say, oh, I don't understand this, and I either want to understand more, so I'm going to go and look into it more, or they would just say, I don't have an opinion on that, and just move on.
It's like in Dutch we say the far from my bed show, because it just doesn't affect you. Which, if you do want to get people passionate about it, that's perfect.
Yes.
Recognize that there might be like, you know what, it's not my thing. I'm not turned on or turned off by it. So just do your thing.
Wow.
Tell me, how did you get into this whole energy work coaching? I don't know what to call it.
Yeah. Yes. Hello. How did I get into it? I guess it was awakened in me, really. I know we've had a conversation about this, about various modalities, and when you learn them, it feels like, for me, it feels like I'm remembering them.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily feel like I'm being taught anything new. It feels like I'm being reminded, like, oh, I came in knowing this, and now this has been reawakened in me.
Yeah.
So when it comes to energy work specifically, I lost a friend to suicide over a decade ago now. And after that I would say that was what some people might call the awakening for me. That was like my spiritual awakening. That was many men, not just one dark night of the soul. There were many months of dark nights of the soul. And it manifested actually as physical pain. I started to have back pain, experience really bad, debilitating back pain, to the point where I live on an island and we have like slipways, little slopes going into the sea and onto the beach. And they're not like mountains. They're very slight inclines, but I couldn't actually walk down because of the angle it put my hips at. Like I physically couldn't walk down the slip at one point. So I was really scared about what that meant for my mobility. And I went to a chiropractor, and she just so happened to be an NLP and EFT practitioner as well as a chiropractor. And when she asked me, so anything traumatic happened in your life in the last couple of years? And I went, work is a bit stressful, money, friend committed suicide. And she was like, oh, okay. I went, wind it back. So what was that?
Yeah.
Skim it. It's fine. Yeah, whatever. Dealt with it. And then she just said, look, if you're really interested in releasing yourself from this back pain, then you might like to try this. And at that point, I get goosebumps every time I talk about it, because at that point, I, on some level, had really given up. And I'm done with this level of emotional pain. And I don't think I really want to do this life thing anymore. So I'll go and I'll have this session. And I almost went into it with the mindset of, once I've done this, then I've really tried everything and I can just tap out. Then I can really say, I tried, guys. I really tried to make life work for me.
Yeah.
So it was like, and so I remember going and having my first session. And one of the phrases that she had me tap on was that all the light went out in the world when he died, because that's how it felt. And so she had me do some work around that, and we cleared that. And then I remember going into my car after I had this tiny little Mini Cooper back in the day. And I remember sitting in my car, looking in the wing mirror and just thinking, oh, I look different. And then I felt different, but I couldn't, it was just intangible. I couldn't put my finger on what it was. And one of the things that had been really plaguing me and making life, like living, difficult, was that I'd started to, and you know how trauma works, right? You start to see it everywhere. Everything becomes dangerous. Everything is a threat. And everyone in my mind was going to take their own lives, or they were all going to die. And it just took the slightest look from someone, a slightest nuance in how they looked at me, and I would translate that as, oh my God, they're going to kill themselves. Yeah. And it was debilitating. It was every single person I cared about. I was just so constantly on edge. And after this session, I sat in the car and I think what I was feeling actually was a sense of peace looking back, but it was so unfamiliar to me back then. It was like I didn't even recognize that it is peace. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, okay, like in my head, I remember thinking to myself, think everyone's going to die. Think about people dying. Think about people committing suicide. Really try and think about it. And it was like, the thought would come in. I could still think the thought, but it was like there was a trampoline in my head and it just bounced out. It didn't get any purchase. It didn't get its hooks in me. It didn't make me feel anything. And it was in that moment where I was like, oh. So yeah, so that was, in that moment, I just knew, I was like, wow, this is some cool shit, man. And after that, I was so addicted to just trying it on everything. And then when I realized I could go and, I worked at an art center. I wasn't in the healing industry or the coaching industry at all. Yeah. I'd always been someone that people came to, and I'd always been coaching people without being a coach, right? Through life, like people just come to us, and that role model is always there. We just don't realize it's there. And it was just a really huge awakening in that moment of, okay, there's hope. And that was the first time where, and I remember just feeling this so emotional, because it was the first time I'd felt hope in such a long time. Like my life had been devoid of, and I didn't even realize that it had been devoid of hope, because it's almost like I'd forgotten that existed. And so that's why I got into this, because I was like, there was no question in my mind that I had found the thing that I was on this planet to do. And when I learned EFT, specifically, that was the first modality that I learned. And it's still one of my faves, even though the way I do it, obviously, is the way that I do it. People go, but how do you do that bit? And I'm like, I can't really teach you that, because I don't really know. It just happens. Like, you just got to trust yourself. But when I learned EFT, it felt like EFT was not even my second language. It felt like my first language. It just felt, this has been the missing piece for me for such a long time. And then everything I've learned on top of that has just been a bonus.
It's just been icing on the cake. And it's interesting, because once you find that one modality, I love EFT and I've just built up so much from that. And yeah, I do occasionally, I'll still do EFT, and especially like the little
The fingertips,
right?
yeah.
The finger points are easy where you're like, oh, didn't realize. Oh my god, I'm actually
Yeah,
up.
that's
I'm later.
oh,
Oh, it's just calm myself down. So I'd be like another different anchor point as well. But one of my favorites is tap and bitch.
That's it. Just tap and talk. Like, people don't realize how simple it can be. And there's so many layers to it as a modality, because this is becoming an advert for EFT. There's so many layers to it because you can just tap and bitch, tap and talk, tap and rant, whatever you want, tap and cry, whatever. And you can also use, I then, feed it into matrix re-imprinting, and we go into the morphic fields and we release your inner child from their trauma, and then it completely repatterns your subconscious. And it's actually so easy to do this stuff. And I'm just like, and I say it all the time. I'm like, how do people live life without, how do they live without it? I don't know how people do life. I guess they do it in pain, and they do it by moaning a lot. I don't know. How do you
interesting, right? Because now, I mean, you have got tons of modalities on board. I've got tons of modalities on board. And it's not that one is better than the other, but you just look at your toolbox and you see whatever client needs one, and you try one and they're like, okay. So you just switch mid-process to something else that actually takes them a little bit deeper. Or even myself, and look at people that don't do this and they're just like, no, I'm just willing myself to feel better. I'm doing some breathing, and I just hear them go, I'm like, great. And this is why I want to come and rescue people. So now I've learned not to do that.
So I was just thinking that. I was like, I'm so far now from when I first began, and it was like, I've got a hammer and every problem is a nail. Like, I'm going to hit everyone in the face with EFT, and it can solve all your problems and fix everyone on the planet. And then that in itself, I remember actually, when I went to, because I'm an EFT trainer as well.
Yeah.
And when I met Carl Dawson, who created Matrix Re-imprinting, and he runs the EFT MRA. And he obviously had to sign off on me being a trainer. Yeah. And I remember him saying to me, you've got responsibility stuff, haven't you? I was like, no. And I'd never really had anyone say that to me, because this is years ago now. And ever since then, I'm like, fuck, he got me. Like, he's so intuitive, and he absolutely hit the nail on the head. I had a lot of, and I still probably do. There's always layers of that people pleaser. When you've experienced narcissistic tendencies and you've experienced certain behaviors in your life, and you've got to a point where you've normalized certain behaviors, and then you do more and more of this healing work, more of this growth and expansion work, and you start to realize, that's not normal. It's not normal to have to take that person's feelings into account that much. Like, it's nice to take people's feelings into account, but to the levels at which I was doing it, I was so tired.
We don't realize how tiring it is, right? Growing up in this,
and you don't realize how vital you can feel.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like when people start doing this work, for me, when I started doing it, it was like, it's like doing a detox. You don't know how good you feel until you've done a few weeks off of sugar and all the crack. And you're like, whoa, I feel like my glass has been cleaned and I'm just this shiny new human. And people are like, wow, you're glowing. What are you doing? And you're like, I'm just not eating shit anymore, or whatever it is. But it is this spiritual, energetic, emotional detoxing process that can feel really crunchy and fucking hard when you're in the midst of it and you're in the throes of the detoxing. But when I look at the person, and I know 6 lines have their 3 phases anyway, but when I look back at the person I was before I knew about this stuff, I don't recognize that person. I don't recognize that person. I love that person. I have compassion for them. I know it's me, but I no longer have those desires to run in and fix everybody. And yeah, to me, I have worked with enough people in my career, if you will. Mm-hmm. I've worked with enough people now to fully understand. People have to say yes. They have to want it for themselves. And because I've always wanted it for myself. I couldn't understand why people didn't want it. I was like, but surely everyone wants to heal, don't they? Everyone wants to understand themselves, don't they? No. And so you can't shake someone awake. You've just got to walk away and be
Frustrating
like,
as it is.
like, I'm here if and when you're ready, and I might be here when you're ready. I might have moved on to the next part of my journey, but yeah.
Yeah. And that is, I think that is such a key point, right? To get to that point where it's, listen, this is how you can work with me. And you just start taking a bit of a stronger stand. I cannot fix everyone. I cannot help anyone. And plus, you're not broken. I'm not here to fix you. I can help you get back to your essence and then the beauty within. And it's up to you. So that's the whole.
And I think so many people, particularly women, I would imagine, I'm just speculating there wildly, generalization. When we go into these healing or coaching industries, it does come from some place of at some point wanting to fix someone from childhood, most likely.
Completely.
Right. So we then move through life thinking it's our job to do it. And then we find a love for it. And it because it's this so purpose driven, it's people wouldn't do this work if they didn't love it. Doesn't matter how much money you can make doing it. That's irrelevant. Doesn't matter if you can be a billionaire doing it. There's no fucking way you would do this work and do it well if you weren't called to it in some way. And I think I would say a high percentage of the people who come into healing work, specifically any kind of healing work, would at some point experience a burnout or physical health issues from that overgiving. And that's almost like our second awakening, isn't it? It's,
completely.
Okay, I've been through that part of like understanding that this is my path. And now I'm going through this next level of awakening where I understand that I have to cherish and nourish and nurture this physical vessel and the human in order to carry out the work that I'm on this planet to do. I can't expect love and light and energy work to get me through. I've got to eat some greens. Do you know what I mean?
You eat some greens, gotta move the body. And when the body's saying don't move at all, sometimes you actually gotta listen to it and just allow that time. And this is where I think so many people are like, come on, we gotta do it quick. And it's like, some things take a bit of time. Some things are very quick with EFT and the other healing stuff that we both do. It can be massively rapid and you can shift people's trajectory like in no time. But at the same time, I don't always expect that.
And also that nervous system calibration to the shift that's occurred in the session or in the work that you do with someone that can require aftercare and some support after as well, because it's not everyone can handle how rapid things shift and the identity shifts that have to happen to support what's just occurred, right? So I no longer have that pattern anymore. Who am I?
Completely right. This is like where I compare it with a BDSM scene. That we talk about what's going to happen, what are your hard no's, what are your yeses, and what is your aftercare. How do you, as the person receiving and also the person giving, as the person holding, how do we get the aftercare? And that is so important in coaching, because otherwise it's just going for the other next high and the next high. And who else can give me that endorphin?
Yeah,
like,
it's positive because you get that like exponential result or that growth, and it's so fast. And then it does become, it can become a drug in itself for sure.
Completely. Oh, this has been fun. Georgina, tell me, darling, where can people find you? What's going on in your world?
The best place to find me is Instagram. I'm pretty active on there, particularly on my stories. Always sharing me and my little sausage dog. So if you love sausage dogs, it's the place to be. Yeah, so I'm Georgina Noel EFT on Instagram, and I obviously have a mailing list if you're into emails and all of that good stuff. And probably the best place to dip a toe into my world is through my membership, which is called Lunar Vortex. So if you're interested in any of that, you can find all the information on my Instagram, or you can just drop me a DM because I'm a chatty Cathy. So I'm quite happy to have a little chat with you on my DMs.
Love it. All of this will be in the show notes, and please reach out to her because Georgina is an absolute master at what she does. And a hell of a lot of fun, right? So thank you so much for being on.